I think it's going live.
Got the red little ring.
We're live.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Clarified Realty Podcast Happy Hour. We didn't expect it to start that way, but we're going to go with it.
It's right there.
How you doing?
First time for everything.
Wow. How's everybody doing? I'm Tom Clary. I am going to be the host because I'm always the host. I'm here with my co-host, Ron Bruno, who's got a crazy phone thing going on. We're working out the bugs, folks. This is our first time. We're in uncharted territory. Ron, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Tom. Thank you so much for asking. It was funding day today.
Funding day is always a
Yes,
good day.
Always a good day.
We always appreciate it when the loans come in and houses close.
Exactly. It was like listing day in Wolf of Wall Street, right? So everyone's
I didn't see Wolf of Wall Street.
You gotta be kidding
No,
me.
I know. I get it.
What?
Everybody loves the Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, you gotta watch that movie.
No,
Really.
Our director has said no. We don't have to see Wolf of Wall Street. It's not.
And take your parents.
Isn't that the puppy oil, Tom?
I saw it with my mom 3 years ago.
You saw it with your mom?
Really?
So yeah, it's been 3 years
Wow.
since I've spoken to my mother.
And that was hilarious. It came out right around Christmas time, and I remember people were so excited to see it, and they said, "Oh yeah, I took my parents," and then the hookers and blow thing that just
Yeah, it didn't go over so
didn't
well.
go over so well.
Got it.
Yes.
Family friendly.
Well, welcome
Not
to
family
the
friendly.
welcome to the happy hour. We're drinking our beers. It's kind of like
Cheers.
Cheers. It's kind of like coffee talk, but with a higher alcohol content. So we're here. I'm here with Ron Bruno, my co-host. I'm also here with Tim Danton, our financial guru extraordinaire.
Good afternoon.
Tim, thanks for coming.
Always a pleasure.
Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
So, Los Angeles native. Happy to know you and your wife, Valley natives as
Valley,
well.
yeah.
And so, I work with Capstone Partners, full service financial planning
Great.
firm. And, really just happy to be here this afternoon. It's a great opportunity and event.
Well, I'm so happy to have you. And Tim has been on a podcast before, and it was a lot of great information. I really thank you for coming to this inaugural version of the podcast.
More to come, right?
We'll see how people respond. If nobody shows up, I wasted the money on the camera,
Good camera.
But I'm also here with Daniel Weingarten, who is an amazing comic. Daniel, nice to
Appreciate it.
have you here.
Nice to be here.
I
Thanks
just,
for having me.
I thought that we just had to bring a little levity to the subject if we're going to talk about something for half an hour.
No, I
So-
appreciate it. Yeah, no, I feel underdressed now. I wish somebody gave me a dress code.
Nobody told you there was a dress code.
I didn't know it was a dress code, and I don't think I processed that it was a video podcast, so I don't think it really mattered. This I'm pretty pleased with, because it
No.
could have been worse.
Look, from the neck up, you're stunning.
From the neck up, I'm
From the neck up, you're just amazing.
I
So
appreciate
wouldn't-
it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I wouldn't stress. Thanks for you guys for coming. Also, I just want to tell everybody that if you look over at Ron here, Ron is actually live looking at our feed.
It's true. Yeah.
So if anybody has any questions for any of the guests, myself, we also have Ian Mayer here. Ian, come over here for a second. Ian Mayer, who is also on our Oh, there he is. Hey, Ian. He's also here to answer questions. He's an amazing home inspector. So if you have any questions about your home or things you should be looking for if you're buying a house when you're going out looking, Ian's the guy. So just give us a little shout out on our feed, and we'll answer the questions a little bit later on. But I did want to get into the topics that we're going to start talking about today.
Cool.
So basically, I saw this article. I'm going to pull it up here. It was on Yahoo Finance, and it was talking about basically millennials, and you're kind of in that.
I'm 25.
You're 25. I can ask.
Yeah,
It's not like,
yeah, I mean, that's fine.
It's not
Yeah.
sensitive for.
No, not at all. I mean,
Good, I
I'm
just
12,
wanna make
so
sure-
I'm 25.
I just want to make sure that I'm not.
No, you're good.
Thank you. And but basically, I was reading this article, and the article said, here I'm pulling it up right now, that millennials are significantly more likely than Gen Xers, that's me, and baby boomers to consider changing weather patterns when reviewing their homeowner's insurance. Compared to Gen Xers and baby boomers, millennials are more likely to have reviewed or updated their insurance policy within the last 5 years. Millennials are also more likely to have a home inventory and to have reviewed or revised it within the last 5 years. Now,
So we're much more type A.
well, that's the
Is that
thing
what
I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
It's so kind of responsible. I mean, it's crazy responsible. Millennials have the resources, like more resources than any generation before it, that they can go to the internet, find the information, hack things, like, hack into, doing a better job at, they can change their own faucet on their,
Right.
You know what I mean? They have those resources. Now, one of the things that we always talk about on the podcast is that information, knowledge, it's supposed to cancel out fear. But we're really not seeing fear go away in the millennials, I'm just kind of saying, we're not seeing millennials enter into the home buying
into
market.
The home buying market?
Yeah.
Well, I think
so
that-
why do you think that is?
I think that's probably a combination of ability from a financial perspective, and then also just priority wise. I think probably there was a time before where you got a job, you got married, you got a house, and that's kind of the way it was. I think in this new age of entrepreneurship, where more people are kind of starting up their own businesses, more companies, and that's sort of the mindset, I think people are holding back from going into the home buying market, instead taking that money and investing it into their own lives, into their own companies.
Right. So their American dream is not necessarily having a house on Main Street. It's really about having a shop necessarily on Main Street, or something that's more their own, or their own life.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Got it.
And I think also, I'm sure that also depends in terms of where we are geographically in the country. At the same time, I just think in more metropolitan cities, you probably have people that are, renting a lot more. They just can't even afford to, build up the capital necessary to put a down payment on a house. And at the same time, people are just like staying at home a lot more and also saving up money.
Right,
right. And I think that goes back to that entrepreneurship kind of mindset where it's like, I'm just going to save up money so that I can start my own company and do my own thing. And like, that's the dream.
Right.
But
now here's the interesting, do you think that home ownership is an eventual kind of goal, or is it to own? Because one of the things that I kind of saw going through the big crash, 2008, 2009, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, is that these people saw their families, friends of theirs, have like literally their house foreclosed upon and being walked out with their boxes of stuff. Was there like an emotional connection to that, like a fear, like, oh, I don't want that to happen to me, like I'd rather rent?
I don't know if it's necessarily that. I think it's just what's important to this generation is just different than what it was to previous generations. Right. And I think, I think there's definitely a connection between getting married and getting a home. Yeah. And I think people are getting married later as well. So I think that's also kind of changed buying patterns and just, in terms of priorities and, and want.
Right. What do you see amongst the folks that like, what do you see as their goals? Like, are they trying to start businesses? Are they trying to?
Yeah.
What is the change?
I see a lot of them trying to start businesses, and I think at the same time too, just in the job market, there's a lot of outside of let's say like big finance jobs or whatnot. There's just entry-level jobs that, they're paying $35,000, $50,000 a year, right? So they don't even have the ability to buy a house in any major market because the housing prices are just too high. So they just rent instead. Or they just move back home and they just, work in the city that they're from.
So you're seeing it, you really see it as they don't have the resources to do it yet.
Right, yeah. I don't think it's as accessible. I think it's either that, or, like I said, B, it's because they're funneling their money in a different direction.
Got it. Tim, you have, I'm sure, folks that you're working with that are also part of, there goes the phone, that are also part of this age group. What are you seeing when you talk to them?
I'm a part of that age group, number one.
What?
I know.
Come on now.
I know I look a lot older than I am.
There's a couple gray hairs in there.
But to Daniel's point, I'm early 30s, and it's still a lot of the same. There's a lot of jobs, but they're not necessarily high income jobs all the time. I was just talking with a client today, and he said, Tim, I've revised my plan. Instead of the 12-month house purchase plan, it's now the 3-year house purchase plan. And guess why?
Right.
He purchased a nice CLA, 2016.
Oh.
So that was more
important
on his priority list. I said, okay, that's your choice.
Nice.
I'm going to withhold my judgment, but that's what it is. So I
see how that CLA appreciates in 3 years, right?
So I think a lot of people, to really expand on what Daniel was saying, it's in the plan, it's in the mix. But as a 25 or a 30-year-old, that can be done in 10 years,
right?
Maybe in some of their minds,
right?
So is it urgent? I think that's one of the big things, urgency.
Yeah. So do you think that, do you have a feeling one way or another about that? Do you think that that's a correct way to go?
to buy the CLO.
No, I think we're all pretty much.
I think we're all in agreement
the
that's
same
a terrible
page.
decision. Now, I think it's interesting though, because I think that within my generation, there's two groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the group that very much is invested on having that kind of that. They focus on having all of those material possessions and the image, if you will. And then there's the other side of it. It's like, I'm going to build something for myself. I'm going to build a company from the ground up. I'm going to live in an apartment with 3 other people, try to like minimize costs, right? Eat ramen and really use my money not for like clothes and and pretty much sacrifice leisure in order to get what I want down the line.
Right.
So whereas I think in the 70s and 80s, and I think the mindset was you graduate from college, you get a job, you work your way up in the company, and then you get your nice pension at the end.
Right.
I think that mindset has changed. And I think the people that are like, I'm going to get all the nice flashy things also don't necessarily get to the point that they can have that lifestyle later on and maintain it.
Absolutely. And I think that's because they kind of blow through their oxygen. They have to, in order to, look, there's very few things that are more entrepreneurial than being a comedian, I would assume. In terms of literally you're out there and it's just you.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, you don't have anybody else to really kind of count on. And, it's not like a day job.
Right.
So
I had a day job.
Okay.
So like I had that for the first 3 years out of college, and I was living in, I was out of the house. I was, paying $1,100 a month in rent, and the rest of the money. I wasn't netting anything. I was actually going into debt. And then the company I was working for dissolved, and I got offered another job, and I had to make a decision. Do I just keep taking that job where I'm making $2,200 a month and bank on the upward mobility over the next 5 years?
Yeah.
Or do I really think, okay, I'm working 14 hours a day for another person. What if I take that mindset and apply it to myself,
right,
and build a business around my ideas, around who I am,
right,
and my skills and my talents, and do that. And I did that. What did that mean? That meant I had to move back in with my parents. Is that all right? That's fine. That's ego.
No,
that's all it is.
totally.
It's just like, am I okay with like fucking putting ego to the side for the sake of being able to have the ability to do the work that I need to do.
Well, and to buy you the resources and time to do what you're
really and even financially.
going.
Like I just had something drop in my lap yesterday where I need to hire a lawyer, and it's gonna cost me like $2,000, right? That's 2 months of rent. But I can afford to spend that $2,000, and I need to spend that $2,000.
Right.
But if I was in an apartment right now and I wasn't at home, then I wouldn't be able to afford that lawyer.
Right.
Put it on a card, now I'm another $2,000 in debt.
Yeah.
So it's allowing me, and I realize that's a privilege on its own.
Sure.
Otherwise, I know there's people that don't have the ability to do that. But I think
Right.
that's just the way my mind works. I'm like, all right, fine, I live with my fucking parents, but I'm working my ass off to build the business that I want to,
The sacrifice.
The sacrifice, yeah.
You need to make. And what's interesting is now that when you were talking, it kind of brought back to me that from what I remember, and please, if anybody chime in here, after the Great Depression, I think there was a huge boom of entrepreneurs. There was a huge boom of businesses being created. And I'm wondering if there's a correlation there in terms of people going, well, screw this. If the economy is going to collapse anyway, or it has its cycles or whatever, I'm going to, and then we just went through that,
Yeah.
Then screw it, man, I'm going to count on myself, because if I'm going to get kicked out anyway, when I was, before I started being a real estate agent, I was in visual effects. And visual effects, that goes from project to project to project, and you never knew when you were going to get booted.
Right.
They didn't hire permanent people.
Yeah.
So you get this kind of feeling like, well, if I'm going to be the master of my own destiny, I might as well do it myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tom, I think
Yeah.
entrepreneurship and being a business owner is admired, and it's actually cool these days.
Yeah.
Where that was definitely
Well, they're sort of
feeling.
rock stars in some ways. You got Kaepernick with the Uber, right? You have
Look, you got
had
Gary Vee, who does a ton of social media.
Gary Vee,
Right?
absolutely.
I think the idea of entrepreneurship is cool. And I think that goes back to the idea of like, there's a lot of people like, I'm a fucking entrepreneur, I'm going to build a business. But then they can maybe put in the work for a month, for 2 months. And then it's like, oh, this is hard. It's like going to the gym and getting a six pack,
Yeah.
Like, right? It's can you sustain, you're like, you get into the first couple days, you're jumping rope, you're waking up at 5 a.m. And then a week goes by and you're like, fuck, I'm tired. Right? And are you going to go to the gym? And that's what entrepreneurship is.
I lived this in 2007. So at the end of 2007, so the first 10 years of my career, I was working for the man. right? So I was in advertising, I worked in business development, national account sales, and I had climbed the ranks and worked in, I was a global marketing director for this company, and I was traveling all over the world, right? It was amazing. Went to China and India and Thailand, and I mean, just all over the place. Germany about 7 times in a span of 24 months. So it was an incredible experience. But what happened is at the end of 2007, the company, all of a sudden, someone out of Germany said, hey, you're not in the plan for 2008.
Oh.
So I was like, wait a second.
What does that mean?
What do you mean am I not in the plan? And they're like, yeah, we're letting you go. We're consolidating all the brands. And I'm like, wait a second. So my president loves me. Everything's going great. And, we've been able to put out this great marketing.
Yeah.
And I'm hitting all the hurdles, all those things. So when you think of it from a meritocracy standpoint, we were kicking butt, right? But they said, no, sorry, we're gonna replace you. And that is the moment when I realized that, you can't just live on someone else's dime. Right? And that's really what you do when you work for corporate America.
Yeah.
Your lifestyle is dependent upon that salary, and it's essentially you have one client.
Right.
You have one client, you have one source of income, and if something goes wrong and it's complete and it could be completely out of your control,
that's a great way to
you're
look at it.
done.
Yeah.
So, I did the smartest idea in the world. I went into wealth management in 2008.
Yeah.
That makes 2 of us.
Yeah, Tim started around the same time, but I mean, what a great time to learn.
So, Tim, what do you, if for the folks that are, look, from what it's sounding like, so they're going to have, this age group is going to create whatever their new goal is, whatever that new, pie in the sky is for them. But that is eventually going to turn into a home purchase, eventually.
Yeah, and I think the people that eventually are going to buy homes also understand the value in investing in homes as well.
Right.
And they see it as an investment.
Absolutely.
They see it that way.
But I guess the question to you, Tim, though, is okay, what are you telling folks that are in your age group that basically as they come to you and say, okay, I have this thing, what should I be doing in the long, so this is now a 3-year, like you said, a 3-year goal. What do I do?
Well, we live in a world where it's a zero-sum game, so you're not going to be able to do everything. So if you're building a business and that's your priority, then build your business. But if your MO is to buy a home, then you got to get on a savings plan.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned this on the podcast, so I'm repeating a little bit, but it all comes down to cash flow and budget, and you really got to take a hard look at it.
Yeah.
You got to figure out if you're underwater on your spending.
Yeah.
Every single month. So
Absolutely.
that's number one.
Right.
Yeah, and if I may add, also you want to, when you're in that position, even 3 years out, just to get a baseline from a lending standpoint. Because when I work with my clients for the first time, I almost put up, when you go bowling, you have those bumpers.
Yeah.
Right? You have to have those bumpers up, right? Because if you start doing some, screwy things with your credit, you lose your job, it's gone, right? Everything that you had planned is completely wiped away, and you have to rebuild to get back into that position. So there are things that people don't know about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they could have a past spouse that did some, bad stuff,
Yeah.
right? So you really want to get that baseline, and it costs zero, right, from that standpoint. And it certainly saves, Tom a lot of work before he shows homes.
Please save me work.
Yeah,
It's all about me.
It's crazy. Like I was talking to somebody, today. I got a referral, and it was. I'm not going to name names, but I got this from a source, and apparently they had been pre-approved, and they were out looking at homes, making offers, and they didn't qualify.
Yeah.
Right. So why would someone put them through all of those hoops and give up their hopes when they've got a long road? And what I tell my clients is, look, I'm here with you, and we're going to walk through, and we're going to do this together. I can't do it for you, right? That's the biggest thing, right? But if you truly want the home ownership and you want to go through what's necessary, some people it's easier than others. We're here as professionals to work with them.
Got it. All right, well, let me move on to the next topic here. And by the way, folks, if you are watching out there, I want to touch bases again and say, if you have any questions, we're watching the feed, please let us know. We'd love to answer them for you while you're here. But I wanted to go into the next topic, which is we kind of touched upon the last economic downturn that we had. And I'm starting to see some leading indicators that are not looking incredibly positive. We're seeing that the machines for manufacturing manufacturing production is down. They're not making machines to manufacture things. Defaults on car loans is skyrocketing. Car sales are plummeting. So the question is, are we about to see a correction? You know, it's funny. Tony Robbins just has a new book out, Unshakable, and it's talking about the upcoming correction. And it's inevitable. I mean, you have corrections. It's a cycle. Are you seeing anything like that, or is there?
I mean, look, we're looking at the markets all the time. One of the big things that we're looking at on a consistent basis, Tom, is interest rate market and inflation and purchasing power, and that's going to affect all of us.
And by the way, before we move on with that, I think I'm always fascinated by how folks kind of feel like that the Fed is like this direct correlation to mortgage rates, which it really isn't. It's actually, they're like, oh, mortgage, the Fed went up, so so mortgages are going up. No, they're actually kind of slightly dipping now, aren't they?
Ron, go ahead.
Sure. So with Fed speak, it all depends.
Come on, Tim.
I got the Fed.
It's like a tag team wrestling match. He's like, hey, you got this one.
Exactly. All right.
Tim's like, I want some beer.
All right, so he tagged me in. All right, so with the Fed, right? So the last time the Fed raised rates, that was in March. And what was interesting was they raised rates, but mortgage rates actually went down. And the reason why is because it wasn't the action of the Fed. That was already baked in, right? Yeah. Everyone knew that, okay, rates are going to go up. It's the fact that the language they said was, instead of it being, we're going to raise this 4 times this year, it's only going to be 3, right? And now there's talk of only 2, right? Because things are, there are some headwinds, if you will.
Right.
And it's healthy when you kind of peel it back a little bit, because you don't want rates to all of a sudden rapidly rise, right? Because right now, HELOC rates are going up, credit card rates. So if anyone has a credit card, they got something in the mail that said, your new APR is X.
Yeah.
And it just means that your rates are going up. So you're paying more per month to have that particular credit line.
Right. Okay. So that answers that. So then, Tim, back to you. Are you, what are these, are you seeing the same headwinds, or are you, how are you kind of counseling folks?
From the retail side, I see a lot of people are employed, and that's great, because
right.
we've seen really bad cycles in the past.
Of course.
Really, really bad.
Right.
And a lot of people that I'm speaking to, we go back to the Millennials research, a lot of information out there. People are doing that research, but they don't necessarily understand their correct way to connect the dots.
Right.
So people think that the Fed is directly related to the stock market, which it's really not supposed to be.
Right.
It's supposed to be driven by market influences and circumstances.
Yeah.
But the difference between monetary policy and fiscal policy has gotten a little gray.
Hazy.
Yes, hazy, exactly.
Little hazy.
From my perspective, when dealing with clients, we're talking about different cycles: real estate cycles, stock market cycles, economic cycles. They're all different, but from what I'm seeing, the job market's pretty good. And people are working.
I do want to add, not only are people working, but what's been fascinating is that consumer confidence has been like at an all-time high. Like,
yes.
People are like really feeling good for some reason,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing. And, it's just kind of interesting how we're kind of seeing these contradictory, you would think contradictory forces.
Yeah, I have some comments on that. So I was at Costco. I was being a good husband and ran the errand while Karen was, hi honey, out in Dallas for her business. She's doing great.
I say, if Karen's here, hi Karen.
That's right. No, she's actually at a client dinner right now, so she's
okay.
not watching live.
All right.
But, give my beautiful wife a nice shout out. Anyway, so I was running errands at Costco, and I could not find a spot, like anywhere.
Right.
Like down the street, there were so many cars. And you would think, like, wow, that's a great time to go into the stock market all in. But actually, it's pretty interesting. As we had our, my college roommate,
Dave
Dooley.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he came on, and he was on our last podcast. Investors, they're very cautious. They're very picky right now.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that? Yeah. Okay. So Ian, you have
Ian,
something to add there? Come on over.
Come over here, Ian. Stand between me. Here.
There you go.
Well, I was just gonna say.
Here. Say hi to everybody, Ian.
Hi, everybody. One thing that I'm seeing on the inspection side is, people are saying, we had to fight 5-6 multiple offers to get the house.
Yes.
Kind of shades of 2006, 2007.
But, 2007, what happened? People started waiving their home inspections.
Yeah, it's
We're
true.
not even due by the home inspection. We'll
Yeah.
waive it just to get the house.
Right.
We'll take it in any condition. We don't care. We just want the house. I'm still seeing a lot of people cancel escrows. If the house has issues, and if I find a lot of issues, they're still willing to negotiate because they still want to get the house.
But they're fine with moving on.
But they're not afraid to say, you know what, this isn't the house for us if it needs $30,000 of work and the seller's only willing to come down 2,000.
Yeah.
So I still think,
But that
there's
was,
some correction maybe coming, but I don't think it's be as drastic.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you. And I think that that's, speaking from, I remember going through that whole time during 2007, 2008. I was looking for a house at the time. And just kind of walking into homes and going, this is insanity. All the things that people were throwing their rights and their contingencies out the window, and all for the chance that they didn't want the house to go away. And it was ridiculous. So.
And what's happening right now, it's really interesting. So back to the point of the Costco is, so it was packed. And I think what's happening is people, they've now gotten to the point where they are now starting to afford things and starting to buy things, and they're trying to catch up. But what is going to happen is they're going to reach that limit. And when there is a correction, there'll be a little bit of a crash, right?
And I don't know anything on the machinery front, but I'm assuming as far as the car loans go and the higher defaults on those, obviously it's a much smaller market compared to the home, probably like 10% the size of the market wise. And
Sure,
the cycle is much shorter, so I'm sure that if something is going awry, they can get on top of it.
Sure.
Yeah, the home.
I hope you're right.
The home market is what, $4.3 trillion. I mean, it's massive. I'm not sure what the
But
car is.
when one industry like that is that large takes that kind of hit, it's not going to be unfelt.
For sure, I'm just saying comparatively to 08. Hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
well,
No, and I think that that's one of the things that I feel as well is that we're going to see you have to see a correction.
Right.
No, I mean, it's
And
been 8 years,
it's
right?
been 8
In a
years
bull
since the correction.
cycle, and usually you have some sort of a correction, and the market's gone straight up. And what a lot of people, and we talked about this, right, with Dave,
yeah.
is a lot of people, they think, well, no, I mean, it's hard to get a mortgage, so it's not the Big Short where they're just writing ninja loans.
No.
Well, the correction may not come exactly the way it was before.
But it
Right?
will come in a different
But
way.
at some point, it will come. But on a positive note, it presents opportunities.
Yeah.
Right? So that's really key
Right,
about
and,
it.
and what his advice was at the time was to get your powder dry and stocked away so that you can take advantage of when house prices dip, when stock prices dip. That's when you buy. You throw as much as you can at it. Now, before we move on, I'm sorry, Tim, did you want to put one little final thing in?
You know what? It's a little bit of a loaded question.
Well,
Well,
I'm kind of loaded. So,
But I'm bummed.
but I'm bummed.
Bum.
I finished
So,
mine.
with the current administration and more of a perceived business-friendly environment coming with tax reform potentially and repatriating a lot of dollars that are based in other countries.
Yeah.
The thought that I've heard, and you guys are the real estate pros, so you educate me, is might this cycle from a real estate perspective continue for maybe a year or two?
I think that really, that depends on his next probably 6 months.
Okay.
And, look, I think that look, you say what you want to about the administration and where it's going and what's going on, right? But anybody who's a businessman is, of course, looking at it and going, there's, the fox is in the hen house. It's time to, you give me a good cliche.
What?
Give me,
It's time to pounce on like an asteroid on the Earth.
that's it.
There we go. There's space
Boom, that's
wallpaper around here, so that's why.
Yeah, you right at it.
Daniel, don't drop the mic. It'll damage our equipment.
Yeah,
Well,
Please
yeah,
stop.
no,
You can't drop
it's not
No,
worth it.
it was not a mic
It's
drop
not-
worth moment.
Nah, not deserving. Not deserving of a mic drop.
Well, I also wanted to kind of make sure, have we been watching the feed? Any kind of good questions?
Yeah, anyone
coming
there?
in?
My wife is watching.
Hi, honey. Hi
Yay!
there. Well, that's great. Well, listen,
At
guys.
least yours is. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right. Poor Ron. Poor Ron. Well, listen, everybody. We're so glad that you could join us, and thank you, guys. I want to say thank you to Tim for coming along again. To Ian, thank you again for coming. I appreciate it. And Daniel. So, do you want to plug your social media so anybody who,
It's just
who watches
ITW
later?
Comedy. at all that stuff.
At DW Comedy.
DW Comedy.
Fantastic.
Simple.
And for us, go to Clarified. We're at Clarified Realty on Snapchat, on Instagram, on Facebook. We're facebook.com/Clarified Realty Podcast, all one word. And visit us on our website, clarifiedrealty.com. Thank you so much for coming to the inaugural episode. We hope that this is something you guys enjoy. I know that this will be on our feed later, so you guys can watch it whenever you want to. And thanks for coming. Anything else, guys?
No, we're good, Tom.
We're
Thanks
just
for setting it up.
We're just drinking more beer.
Cheers.
Yeah.
All right,
Cheers.
take it easy, guys.
Alrighty.
Bye-bye.
Take care.